When you finally try Bud Light Seltzer, your taste buds will thank you. In their own special taste bud way.
We're hot. What up, baby? Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. It's the Power Trip Morning Show's After Party Podcast, and it is the 27th day of 2020 of November. And today's the 19th anniversary of the Power Trip. We're brought to you by Bud Light Seltzer.
Thanks, Bud Light Seltzer.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you.
Thank you. I'm Mike Zahn.
Hi,
Yeah,
Mike
you're
Zahn.
Mike Zahn. Chris, my Christmas wish for you
Yes,
is for you to get a goddamn E-Trade account so
Yeah, I
you
know.
can gamble every day.
I know.
It's the best, man. What do we got to do to talk you into playing some stocks with us?
Spot me
It's so much fun.
$5,000.
Spot you $5,000?
Yeah, spot me $5,000.
Are you Russian?
Hi, Nick.
Why don't you go to the casino,
Yeah,
win some money,
if I have to, I will.
and then bankroll your stock trading?
Yeah, no, that'd be fun.
It's so much fun, dude.
I should do it. You're right. I should do it. Sorry, I forgot I had my mask.
Never too late to start.
I have the account all set up. I just got to put in my bank info.
Oh, sweet.
So I do need to do that. You're right.
Yeah, start slinging it, man.
Yeah, start
Right.
getting after it, babe.
Again, think of when you get the gambling itch and you
Yeah.
want to go play the old max bet button.
That's right.
Think about doing the Power Trip Morning Show, and when 8:30 hits and Rosie's blabbing on about sports,
Yeah.
you can just check your stocks and tune out. Sauce and I do it 5 days a week. 8:30 hits. Middle of initials today, I checked my stocks.
But how long?
Right.
It's fun as hell.
He said he has the account all set up, but he just needs his bank information. How long is it going to take for your wife to give you the bank information?
Yeah, that was kind of the unsaid statement right there.
Yeah.
I don't know what my
that- yeah.
bank
Because
information.
she'll go, wait, what are you doing?
How can I do it? I don't know. how to
I'm
do
going to open a stock account. Who's going to help you do it? Corey. Okay, fine.
But yeah, don't say Corey and meat
Yeah,
sauce.
don't say me. Or, yeah.
Even if sauce
well,
is a part of
no,
it, don't
me,
tell
if you
Kim.
say me, she likes me.
Yeah, but if it's, I'm going to take stock advice from Sauce, she's going to say, you don't get the bank information. Right?
Yeah, good point. Tell her I'm a silent partner.
That's what I was waiting for too. What were the initials?
FS.
Oh, financial supporter. Where there's one or something like that where it was. I forget what clue it was even, but there was something that fit probably 3 of the 4 clues, and I'm thankful I didn't jump in and say that.
Hawk said the only thing he wrote down was Frank Sinatra, which was tiebreaker number 2 if we got past free safety.
Freaking Frank Stallone was in my head.
Oh, brilliant.
You guessed it. Frank Stallone.
Yeah, I was waiting on. I could have gotten that one as well. but man, bottom line is this, and we talked about this before we started. On the way in this morning, I listened to myself get 8 and just be on fire on that best of that you ran
Sure.
today. I had nothing. I literally had nothing.
It's a streaky game, man. Again, AJ has spent the better part of 6 years dominating this game,
I know.
but is mostly ice cold the last 3 weeks, even though he almost won today. But last 3 months,
When's the last
excuse
time you
me.
won?
Cherry Hill Day.
Did you say October?
That's right.
But I think you've won twice in the last 3 months. It's
Right.
something like 2 out of 12.
Yeah.
Which is a really bad pace for AJ.
After I think being thwarted on a quest for 5 in a row. I think
Something
that was
like that,
prior
right.
to.
Yep.
This one today frustrated me more. Not that the clues were hard, like mental frustration, but I felt like I blew it. Like I felt
Sure.
like I had control of it from the beginning.
Right.
I had control of it in the middle.
Didn't close
I had
it out.
control of it at the end, and I just blew it down the stretch.
I
It
said
was stupid
that-
for sale. Like, come
Yeah.
on.
And Sauce said final sale,
and
and
I
that
would have
didn't
said
send
flash
up the
sale.
Yeah, it
So
didn't
Chris,
send the
legit.
I said
Beat
that
everything.
in the bit I did after. When Parrish missed full strength and AJ got it, I go, oh fuck, here we go. It's
gonna be one of those days.
He's
Yeah,
gonna,
but it wasn't
AJ's
impressive
gonna get
though.
a
It was
ton
the
of them,
final.
though.
It was the 5th or 6th clue. Like
6th clue.
it wasn't.
Oh,
It wasn't
yeah,
like
yeah.
I blew you away with.
Right.
Pol Pot was one I heard this morning, or Mel Gibson, like Mark got last week, where it was just like definitive.
Yeah,
I figured it out before everybody. It just wasn't.
Hey, since it's our 19-year anniversary, we can go inside radio a little bit. As the Power Trip has spent almost 2 decades on a slow climb at like a 12-degree angle, right? Just chipping away with 0 ratings 19 years ago to what we are now. That's been the one fun thing about our show's history is the way we grew to get to the top was a super rewarding way to get there, right? Because it didn't feel like a flash in the pan to Charger's point this morning because we saw that angle just consistently going the right way. Even when we were like in 7th place, A year later, we were maybe closer to 6th, right? Maybe a year later, we were closer to 5th. It was just a slow grind, but we always thought it was possible, right? We even honestly in year 1, year 2, year 3, we were talking about catching Tom Bernard, who at that point was 30 shares ahead of us.
I know.
But we're like, wouldn't it be cool if we could do it? And it took us, 12, 13, 14 years to do it. But it was just a super, super slow grind. And the fascinating angle with initials was with women, right? We spent the better part of 12, 13, 14 years never talking about female demos because our female listeners were so small, such a small percentage of our group. Right, very small people. A lot of porn that Hawk watches features some of our female listeners. But how many times in the last 6 years since we started this game have women come up to you at the state fair or at a concert or a stand-up gig and said, my boyfriend or husband used to listen to the show. I thought it was fucking dumb. I hated it. Yeah. I never wanted to listen to you guys. But I fell in love with initials, and now I fell in love with the show backwards because of how much I love the game on Friday. And in the last 6 years, our female numbers have over doubled. Yeah. So we were at the point where we didn't even discuss what our female numbers were because they were so small and we didn't care. Well, and now it's legit. Now we're like a top, I don't know, 5, 6 show even with women.
Sometimes better than that.
Yeah, sometimes better than that, which is awesome.
Yeah, and the thing I always like to say, though, is we ran down a guy who beat Howard Stern.
Yeah. And by the way, in without sounding like we're, stepping on his grave, all of us have massive amounts of respect for Tom Bernard.
Oh,
right?
Tom Bernard's a good friend of mine. I love Tom Bernard.
Yeah, I have nothing bad to say about Tom. And in a lot of ways, what I'm saying is the opposite, right? Is we know in the history of Twin Cities radio, it's not even a debate that Bernard is the GOAT.
Yeah.
Right? He is, on the Mount Rushmore, Bernard is the number one. Nobody's even debatable if this was a Hall of Fame vote. He would be unanimous, right? It's Tom Bernard's one. Everybody else
Unless Lavelle voted.
Right. But everybody else is voting for 2. That's why, when Mike and Chris and I used to sit around and talk about the idea of catching him, it was like the greatest honor we could think of. It's like, what if we eventually caught him?
What did he have when you guys started? Like a 30-something?
More. I think, if I remember right, when we started, WCCO was normally second place. And Bernard was like a 37 share, and I think CCO was like a 4 share. And we were, a 1 or something.
They were a second place with a 4 share?
It was that dominant?
Yeah, and at the time,
and
I believe this is correct too, Hawk can back me up, but I believe at the time somebody told us that gap from 1 to 2 was the largest gap in the country. So he was dominating this market more than anybody was dominating any market in the country.
Howard Stern has worked in every market but this one. Is that right, Hawk?
Mostly true.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Didn't you? Okay, so what does that mean? Worked in every market, like physically?
Bernard kicked Stern's ass
he was
here.
Syndicated into every.
Oh, you mean he worked, meaning like success?
They syndicated him here
because I was going to say I thought Chris did that.
Yeah. He would do funerals for people he would knock down. And if you ask Bernard, the biggest mistake Howard made is he'd go after him, and people listening would be like, "Who?" People that weren't in Minnesota.
Sure.
And Bernard never ever brought him up. He ignored him like he wasn't here.
And that's been our strategy with a lot of stations for the last 20 years too, right? Is not talk about stations that are below us.
No, it's the same thing, what we were talking about earlier this morning. Yeah, to be fair though, and I listened to every show that Stern did when he was in this town because obviously that was like the board op thing.
Yeah.
He only mentioned him a few times. They tried to get him to mention him a lot more and he wouldn't do it. We did a lot of things locally to go after him. He just never acknowledged us. He never fought back. He never tried.
Smart.
Yeah, no, I even went to one of his events down at the Coliseum over by the X one time. They were having some kind of party or something like that, and I went in with a couple other people and carried signs saying "Listen to Howard Stern" and everything like that.
Did you really?
Absolutely.
For real? I didn't know this story.
Wow.
So just
you were a troll.
and that was a local decision or a Stern
yeah.
decision?
So we had this guy Andy Bloom.
Mm-hmm.
Who was our boss, and Andy had been the guy who brought him into Philadelphia. And so Howard, I guess grudgingly probably had some respect for Andy and wanted to support him, and that was Andy's big thing when he first got here. Was like, we're going to bring Howard in, we're going to blah, blah, blah. I know how to win with Howard. And so he tried to be that guy. He tried to, I think Andy's maybe a Philly guy or a New York guy by birth, and so he was very much about let's attack.
Mm-hmm.
It just didn't work. And by the way, by saying it didn't work, he was getting an 8 share. He was doing well.
Yeah.
Just not for the amount of money we were paying him and not to even come close. I would say that Tom was probably, I shouldn't say like Mr. Bernard was probably beating him by 3 times, I would guess.
Yeah.
Even then, even when Stern took an 8 share, I bet he still had a 24.
Yeah.
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 I don't know,
he's the
man.
GOAT, man.
It's so weird. You know, we you nailed it though, dude. And I was thinking about this the other day, and I got some ideas, by the way, that I want to do for the show as we come through this 19th year towards the 20th anniversary. But I don't think it would mean as much if we had flashed and came out and been number 1 right away.
Right.
You know, because then you spend your entire life trying to hold on to that, and that's a position that's not always comfortable. I love the idea of having chip away at it, and we chipped away at it, by the way, because we were allowed to learn how to do it. That's a huge thing. Chad and Greg and Mick and Dan Seaman, and
Doug Westerman,
and all those guys let us
Tom
be bad
Mooney.
for a very long time. They really did. They let us be bad for a very long time, and then we figured out what worked and what didn't, and because of that. But again, I think that's because the expectations were so low.
Yep.
You know, they would have been fine if we had stayed at a 5 share. We'd still be on the air.
No doubt.
If we only had a 5 share.
Well,
Yes,
maybe,
go ahead.
right?
I think so.
I don't know if we would in 2020, but years ago, I remember when we got to a 4 or 5 share, and they were like, "This is incredible." And like Charch alluded to on the show this morning, there was it on Mix? Whose office door had the sign, or maybe we had it in the studio back in Bloomington, where it was like, there was something posted on the door that basically said, like, the morning show will never be a 4 share.
Yeah.
And that was true. They truly were going to be happy if we pulled a 2 or 3 share because they didn't expect a cute little AM sports talk radio show to pull a 4, especially against like a juggernaut like CCO. No offense, but they're not anymore. But they were when we started 20 years ago. And KQ was such a beast. They're like, if you can get a 4 share, we're going to be just fine.
Yeah. You know, and this is something we've referenced on the show before, but it's a true story. Mick told Starr and I one time that he would give us each $1 million if we beat Bernard.
Right.
Were you there for that?
I was there
yeah,
too.
okay,
Yeah.
there you go. Right. Yeah, I couldn't remember. But yeah, that's the truth. I wish I had that in writing.
Because that was something. Yeah. Because but think about it.
Yeah.
In 2000, he probably said that in what, like 2 or 3,
Yeah, I was gonna say
pretty
right
early
there.
on.
Yeah, very early.
He
Very,
basically
very
said,
early.
right, if we bonused you $1 million to beat Bernard, he goes, it would be worth it because your ratings would be big enough where we could make that money back. So he's like, yeah. Again, he never truly wrote it into a contract, but he joked about it because but he wasn't kidding about the logic. He goes, it would be worth it if you guys truly were that big.
For sure.
But
and that
since
was
you didn't get it
17,
in
18
writing,
years ago.
instead of $1 million, you spent your paycheck that day on a Blizzard.
We
Went
did.
over
Yeah,
to
I
Dairy
love how
Queen.
natural
That was what, 14 years
I have
in?
the picture. Remember, I sent you guys the
Yeah.
picture.
Yeah,
Yeah,
recently, right? Yeah.
We finally when we finally got the official book, even though we knew for about 2 months that it looked like we were going to beat them.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
When we finally had the first quarter where we actually were number 1, the 3 of us went across the street to a Dairy Queen that doesn't exist anymore.
yeah.
By the way,
Right.
it's gone, and we got blizzards,
be
and
a
that was the way we
Starbucks.
celebrated. Which
Yeah.
the most like
That place
low
is good,
key 10
Cody?
o'clock blizzard of all time.
Yeah.
It was fun
Yeah.
though.
It was weird too. I remember when we were leading up to that, and the weeklies were coming out, and it was like seeing the white flag, and you had about a half lap lead, but you were worried you were going to blow a tire. Man.
Right.
Well, I
right.
remember Abbott
know?
was out
Yeah.
when we learned because we got it from Swedberg,
Yeah,
and
right.
his proud dad moment
for
was
sure.
sweet. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. It's.
Then he
become-
passed away.
Yeah, and he's back now. He's like a mink. He just revived
A
himself.
mink.
Well, and if you look at like, you mentioned the way that the women were starting to pay attention. You mentioned the way that the show has changed over the years. In reality, those changes then set you guys up for success right now.
Sure.
In the middle of a quarantine, when sports were shut down, everyone else was trying to figure out what they were going to talk about. You guys were just like, okay, let's do our normal show. And I think that a lot of people are coming out of this situation whenever we get out of it with the ability to see and think like, okay, we need to what did we learn during COVID that we're going to carry forward? And it's this show, this station, because of the way that it just has operated for years, has a head start and is in a good position to lead the way out of this funk that everybody's in.
You know what else is crazy, Hawk? And I don't know if you have this, but and this is a massive credit to the giant group on the Power Trip Morning Show that Tennessee and Guernsey like to make fun of, that we have 1,000 people on the show. But honestly, whether it's AJ, Zach, Brienne, Lieber, Rosie, like our whole montage of people, I remember there were days, I don't know, 05, 06, 07, 08 range. I don't know, like first 5, 6 years, 7 years of the show. And our ratings were starting to grow. But I remember if you had asked me on a Friday, like how was the week of shows, I bet you 3 days I went home and I was like, fuck, this show sucked today. Right? Like, legitimately sucked. Like, where we didn't have anything funny. The content was bad. Like, we just didn't have our legs set.
Yeah.
And then there were about 1 or 2 days a week I'd be like, man, we kind of killed it today.
Yeah.
I don't remember the last time I truly went home and said the show sucked. Like, I'm not saying we have home runs every day,
Right.
but we have such a base now, and our rotational stuff is so solid that I rarely go home disappointed. There's definitely days where I'm like, yeah, we were a little off today. But when was the last time you actually looked in the mirror and said, today was a fucking disaster and an embarrassment to radio? I don't remember last time I felt that way about any show that we did.
I can say it like this, and you're right. And the great thing about doing the show with you two and with everybody we have on the show, I go home many days and say, I was shit today. I was terrible. But you guys always pick it up when I'm having a bad day. And that's the key, you know, is we're good enough, you know, you guys are good enough that the show is built in a way that if I'm not having my best day, like on the Initials game today, it doesn't necessarily mean the show's going to be bad. But, you know, you said a while back, going back to what you were referencing, man, it can't be overstated how much the Initials is responsible for our success. Because I had
You're welcome.
Yeah, thanks for quitting, AJ.
Thanks for, yeah. But I've had multiple hundreds of people say that they never listened to us until they listened to the Initials game. Then they got used to us and they liked us, and then they tried the rest of the show and they were like, oh, this is not a sports-centered talk show.
Correct.
And so, I can't thank you enough for that, dude. That's what I tried to write in that card today, you know, without being too serious. But my life's different. This show's different because of that game and, you know, the fact that we all came together and it's all working. So
think about it. Let's go back. So really, if AJ and Abby don't get knocked up,
Right.
and then AJ quits
Wait a
to try to
Abby-
get in. Not Abby.
No, the biker guy hasn't shown
I
up
was
yet.
talking about my
Abby.
daughter. I'm like, what?
No.
What?
AJ quit because he was embarrassed because he got his boss pregnant. No, if AJ doesn't quit for 4 days, I don't come up with the AJ game, which was going to be a one-time game.
Right.
Yeah, I'll
It
never
literally was
forget.
a one-time bit, and I'm
After-
like, that was kind of fun. We should screw AJ.
Yeah.
Let's play this when he's gone.
Well, and by the time we played game 2, I was already
you were
back.
already back.
Yeah, we played after we got done. You on the talkback look at Hockey go, that was fun. We should do that again. And Huck goes, yeah. It was just like this
So not only
kind
did
of calm, like it was, yeah.
Well, out of the 19 years we've done this show, too, I will say that I thought the Initials wave of comments was the most like unanimous listener feedback we've ever gotten. Where everybody's like, that was fun. You should do that again. And we've always talked about on social media, it's so much harder to tweet or email positive things than it is to just be like, that sucked.
Right.
So the fact that we had like a pretty solid outpouring of, you guys should play that game in the future again. I was like, wow, I think we got something. We knew really early that people liked it. We just didn't know it would work this well. But again, not only does AJ have to get Abby pregnant, not only does AJ have to quit to go get more money for the new kiddo, we got to go all the way back to when AJ was born. If his parents name him Paul, what the fuck is the Paul game?
Or
Right?
in third grade,
Showing
when
up
there
late.
were third grade when there were 2 Aaron M's and I had to pick a nickname,
Right.
and I went with AJ because I could have been Aaron.
The Aaron
I
game
mean, I am
would have
Aaron,
been
but
boring as hell.
Yeah, right.
So you had to have initials for your name, otherwise I wouldn't have tried doing the initials bit. And
Right.
again, like I've complained about for 6 years, that first game we played, I just tried to come up with as many AJs off the top of my head, and I came up with 12. I regret not making it 10 every day since, because it would have saved me so much work
Right.
to not make it best out of 12 and cut me down to best out of 10. But
It's clearly impossible to ignore the impact that the game has had, but you'd be completely remiss if you didn't mention the vibe that the show has, and you guys talk about it all the time, that you come to work and there's a formula, there's a layout for certain segments in this, but overarching, the umbrella of the show is you come to work with the intent to make your buddies laugh. You try the feeling of friendship and an actual, like, you know, we're not all best friends and we don't do a ton of stuff outside of, but we come to work and we hang out and we like each other and we have fun and we just sit here and try and make each other laugh.
Right.
And throw a joke and we race for the punchline.
3.5 hours of improv.
Right. And that's what
with
people do.
structure.
When
Right.
people get together with their friends and they do that same thing.
Well, that's what I joked
Yeah.
about yesterday on my sarcastic Thanksgiving text. I was kidding, but there's a degree of truth to that out of this whole group, I literally don't hate one of you, right? And that's the beauty of the show is if you have a 2-share, you got to get desperate and do whatever you want, right? But we're at the point now where we don't have to put up with somebody that we hate. right? So we have a group that we all like, right? All of us like each other, right? There's not like, oh, God, we all hate so-and-so.
Right.
And that's a huge difference because in the 20-year history of the show, there's been tension, right? As the show has grown, we've had co-hosts, we've had guests, we've had people that just did not see eye to eye, and it makes it tough. But this whole group it's like tension-free, which is huge.
And to your point, that's why Max isn't around anymore, because we all hated him.
hated Max.
Right.
That's enough. Well, the point to AJ's point, the hardest I've heard you laugh was when you played YMCA, and I did a bit off the air. No one saw it but you, and you laughed.
And then he videotaped it and texted it to all of us.
Yeah, which still, but yeah.
Fun, yeah.
But there has been tension in and out that has been worked through like a family.
Sure.
Like it hasn't been relationship breaking. It has been something that we see the benefit in obviously for the show, but more so just in the people. Like there's been tension that has been worked through, that has been talked through, that hasn't just been set over here to fester and become this giant thing. That's where the history of this industry has turned into a lot of that. Just ignore it, and then kaboom.
My favorite thing about how this show's evolved over 19 years is the way that success has given us more freedom. I remember the days when we would get a call and say, "Hey, ESPN's about to have Joe Mauer on. We got a counter program. We got to talk Twins baseball. Why don't you come back from break 5 minutes early? Let's start talking Twins. Let's make it very clear that we're going to spend 15 minutes talking about Twins." And we would basically have to monitor other shows or stations to out-program them. When was the last time we gave a shit what anybody else was doing? You just do a good show, and if people like it, they'll listen. If you don't do a good show, they're not going to listen. Yeah. So when was the last, honestly, see if you can answer this, when was the last time we counter-programmed anything? 10 years?
It had to have been at least.
I bet it's 10 years.
Yeah,
Favre?
They used to do some things with the clock. When I
yeah,
talk
yeah,
about
yeah.
Strategic
breaks, to break by a certain time, and don't get me wrong, we still sort of do that, but we do it
for ourselves. Right.
Yeah.
Not
very,
against
very much
anybody
so.
else.
Yeah, exactly. And again, since we're giving props where props due, obviously I don't think it can be overstated as well what the change is with Sauce being on the show. But not just because of who he is and how funny he is, but also at some point, and it wasn't easy for him, it wasn't easy for you, but at some point you agreed to become Sauce. You know what I mean? And that wasn't easy for you to do, and it wasn't always something you wanted. And I think it also is it's a role that you were born to play, but not one that everybody could do. Not just because not everybody's as funny as you are, but also because not everybody would take the shit from Corey that you do.
Right.
but that's
true,
important.
but
And
he
it took
also-
you a while to sit down and sit
Right.
in that, man. It did.
But Sauce, you also know, because we've talked about this 1,000 times in the last 10 years, I shit on you because that's the bit, right? It's the Dwight and Jim bit. I have to make fun of you when you say dumb shit. I have to poke holes in your logic. You have to come back and say something even more ridiculous on top of what you just said. That's the bit. And to Hawk's point, that's what you're good at, right? Is compounding your own stupidity with something even dumber than what you just said. It's the best.
Well, what's the longest running TV show of all time? Cartoon. The Simpsons. Who's the best character? Homer. Homer's an idiot. That's
Can
where I
you
got
let
it.
us fucking guess?
No, I've had too much
God,
coffee
you're
and
dumb.
Mountain Dew.
See, okay.
Oh, don't put the mic on my tits.
Jesus, Zach, calm down.
We one thing, and I don't mean to steer this in a different direction, but it's a unique situation today, being a Friday, being Bud Light's sponsorship on the day that we have the live stream here. We have people that are throwing out their favorite Power Trip memories in the chat here, and it's been fun for me as the one who's been reading it to kind of see that. We forget about so much that happens on this show. Somebody was just saying that their favorite moment was when Sauce rewrote the plot to Hook 2.
Oh, fuck. I forgot
about that completely.
Right. Like, if you have a funny moment, I mean, please put it in the chat and let us, because we love remembering these things too, and we're the first ones to forget what happens on the show. A lot of times we talk about this.
I totally
The
forgot
listeners
about that
remember
one.
so much more about what happens on the show than we do. So I'd love, if you have a great memory as we finish this 5 minutes here or whatever, share it in the chat, because there's so much of that is just fun to look back
Do you
on.
have a number one?
Favorite moment?
Yeah, just the one at the top of your list in terms of the moment the show changed, the moment you knew the show was going to be good. I don't know, like your pinnacle moment.
Jeez, man, no. It would take me, and it It would take me forever to figure that out, man. Honestly, because my memory's so bad. But again, it's not even a joke. But when this show ends today, I got to think about what the show's going to be tomorrow, and so do you.
Yeah.
And when the segment ends, I got to think about what the next segment.
you move on.
You don't have time to sit too long and think about what you just did. So, man, there's been so many moments, man. There are moments. The first Vegas trip. And seeing the reaction from everybody and hearing the laughter in person. That's the one thing, you know. There's a million things about having a room full of people that I love, but it all goes back for me to this radio show I used to listen to from WLW. And one day a week in Cincinnati, they did this bit where they had all the people who were available from the radio station come in, and they played this game. And everybody on the staff was allowed to answer these trivia questions against the listeners. And I loved that day, and I always thought, man, this is the best day of the week, and that's kind of the way I feel about the show on a daily basis. The more people having fun and laughing on the show, the more it sounds like you're just another buddy in the room with your friends.
Mm-hmm. Didn't we call that like the fishbowl, Power Trip Fishbowl?
We had, it was something like
Way
that.
back in the day?
Yeah, we did that. Remember, we used to have people come in, and we would, God, I can't remember what we called it, but I
think
literally
it was
stole
Fishbowl.
that. That might be right. I literally stole the bit.
I don't remember why we called it that, though.
But every day is sort of like that on the show, and I love that, man. The more people that you think about, the Jackass guys, right?
Yep.
Even Buddy Games, this latest movie. You want to be a part of that group of people who are having fun and who like each other and are glad to be there. You know, one of my favorite things, actually, now that it comes to mind, one of my favorite days in the history of the show, had nothing to do with being on air. It was that day we all got together and took the picture of all of us together.
In the studio?
Yeah. And you know why that comes to mind? And I'll never forget this as long as I live. I turned to Ben Lieber and I said, man, thank you for taking the time to come in here and do this. And he goes, dude, thank you for letting me be a part of this. And I was like, that's fucking Ben Lieber. And I didn't know Ben that well yet. Then,
Sure.
You know? I'm like, that's Ben Lieber right there that just said that. Yeah, I mean, he's grateful to be on this show. Jason Zucker is in here.
Still loves doing it.
Still,
yeah.
I mean, I was like, wow, maybe this is for real. I don't know.
Sure.
And okay. How about the State Fair show? The first State Fair show, the first big State Fair show.
Yeah, because we had do you remember way back in the day when I was the distant third wheel, they didn't want you and Star at the State Fair.
Yeah.
So for the first year or two, you stayed at the
Right.
studio.
Why is that?
Yeah.
Because somebody had to run the board.
Yeah.
So then Star and I would go out to the State Fair and do the show for 6 people because we were there so early. It would basically be for janitors. And we're like, why are we at the State Fair? So we called off the morning show after a couple of years of knowing there's nobody here. We're broadcasting to nobody. So then when we decided, hey, why don't we do Power Trip night shows? This is, 7 years ago maybe?
Yeah.
And the first couple of years we did it, there was like decent crowds, right?
Yeah.
Decent crowds. But then 1 year from literally a calendar flip, and we showed up and shit our pants because it was packed. And we're like, what the F is happening?
Still can't believe it.
I couldn't believe it. We're like, where did all of these people come from? And it just, and that was, again, the culmination of just a decade and a half of the show building up. That was a mind blower for sure.
The one for me, and it was kind of when the show started to make the turn, coming around the bend, was the Go See It 5000.
Oh, yeah.
Like that was one of the first big pranks that we went all out and set Rosie up, and I mean that has furthermore become a part of the show is pranking Rosen, pranking people. But that bit there, the Groundhog Day bit that you guys did, I don't remember what year that was.
That's my
Genius.
answer for the my pinnacle moment, and it's self-serving because it was my idea. But I'll say this: the reason why I think it was the game changer for the show is we didn't even know it at the time, but that was the first signal for us that we don't need to do 3 hours of sports.
Right.
We don't need to counter program. We can do something creative and have people talk about it at the water cooler and not worry about the clock. Because I remember our biggest concern about that show, and if you don't know what we're talking about, we did a Groundhog Day show, I don't know, 07, 08, somewhere in that range, 06, 07. And we did I think that we were just 6 to 9 at that point. We did an opening segment from 6 to 6:15, and then improv the exact same segment 8 more times. So we were taking notes while we were talking, and we came back with Sonny and Cher for the second segment, and we did the exact same segment, improv though, not recorded, 9 straight times. So it was so perfectly pulled off. We had affiliates calling our bosses saying there's something wrong with the power trip, like it's on a loop. So even radio people didn't notice that we weren't just recording it and replaying it. We were just improvising it,
and that was the best part. Yeah.
And we got and as the show went on, we got closer and closer to saying the exact sentences. Right? I assume segment 2 was probably pretty close, but by the time we got to the end, we had our lines memorized because we had done it 8 times. And again, this was during the time where one of the concerns was, well, if we don't mention the Twins score, how do we do this? Not that the Twins play in February. If we don't do sports news, how are we going to, like, our listeners are going to get pissed.
Yeah.
So I don't even think we realized it at the time that was the signal to us that we just have to do a show and not worry so much about the other shit.
I can remember 2 things about that day specifically. Number 1 is sitting in the Score 690 and looking at you right before the show started and saying, all right, fuck it, let's do it. You remember?
Yeah.
I mean, because we were just debating it until that moment.
And think about it, and I'll give credit to Star. There was 3 of us, right?
Yeah.
And you were mostly no.
Yeah.
I was clearly all in. And Star was like 90%, and he's like, I think it's worth it. And you were the one that had to be convinced. And you were the one, you're like, you know what, fuck it. And I'll give credit to Star. I think Star pushed you over. If Star had been more on the fence or leaning towards no, I would have been outvoted.
Yeah, for sure.
But Star was the one that was like, I think I don't know what we have to lose. And Star eventually convinced you to flip, and we went for it.
And so that's number 1. Number 2, the other thing I remember the most about that was it wasn't like it was applauded by the listeners.
No.
But when we walked down the hallway, Swedberg fucking high-fived.
Couldn't believe it.
And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. No, it was my idea. It was great.
but think of how many times after that, then we just didn't give a shit about instant reaction. We're like, is this a long play? Let's just do things that we think are funny or that we think are entertaining. If they work, they work. If they don't, they don't. But let's just do things to do things. Who cares? Let's try it once in a while.
Having the idea is huge. Also as huge, though, is Greg Swedberg giving us the high five and the pat, because then we were like,
no doubt.
Oh, fuck, somebody left the gate open.
Right.
Let's do whatever the fuck we want.
Dude, that's a great point. If he had basically said that, why would you think that's good?
Right.
Like, how is that going to help ratings? Yeah. And, of course, the answer is in the long run, again, that's 15 years ago. We're still talking about it. If we had just done a normal show that day, that's a forgettable day, and we just move on.
Yep.
So I guess I hadn't really ever thought of it like that, that if Greg had truly shit on it and been like, that's a disaster for ratings. If anybody has a meter, we're screwed.
Yeah.
That may have changed our gamble factor moving forward. But,
100%
but Greg was like all in, awesome, whatever, blah, blah, blah. He couldn't stop raving about it, and all of us were like, shit, we actually pulled it off. And I think we did it one more time, which I'm almost a little pissed that we did. We should have just left it alone. It's almost like I hate reboots. We did it, I think, one more year.
We did it one more time, yeah. The 3 of us, I
thought we did like a different angle on it.
I think we did it for a segment or 2.
I think we did 2 different. I think, if I remember right, and the listeners, again, have better memories than we do, I think we did it another time truly identically, right, where we did a repeat. But then I think we did didn't we do 1 year where we had Star or Sauce die at the end of every segment 10 different ways, like Groundhog Day?
That sounds right.
Yeah.
That sounds
so we may have done it 3 times.
Yeah.
2 times legit. 1 time I think we did let's just have him die a different way every segment. I think. Was it you or Star that we had killed? Maybe that was Star. I don't remember now. See, my memory's garbage.
I do remember when AJ ate that 20-piece chicken McNugget in 3 minutes. I do remember that.
That was, I won a bet, didn't I? Is that what it was?
There was probably money.
20 piece in how many minutes?
3 minutes.
So that was what was
easiest...
that? Was that the record or what?
I don't know.
There was a reason we did it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Sauce, end on this. Do you have a number 1 moment? Do you have a favorite moment?
I mean, we all are. I fucking love Superstar, man. One of my favorite moments is when he did put the fucking lotion in the basket on the air, because it was the definition of he's just doing the show for me, and he would just say shit. I don't know, man. I thought that was great. I mean, the AJ farting on hockey, which caused a fucking fight, was fun.
Great.
Like a physical. Corey and I are like,
why do you bring that shit up? I
they
hate
were
when you guys
fighting.
You legit don't like that. That was so. I walked in. You guys were in the other studio. I walk in and I walk up to Chris. I put my butt towards you,
You
and
set it on my shoulder.
and I went, and you lost it.
That's the best.
You went back to your glory
Indiana.
days of wrestling, and the entire time you tackled me to the ground. We're in the producer studio, so it's a small space. On the way down, I hit the garbage can, I'm laughing because I think you're kind of goofing me, but you're literally trying to, I don't know what the end game was, like pin me or what it was, but the garbage tipped over, so there's rotten coffee grounds and wet newspaper that my face is getting rubbed in, and about 20 seconds later you came to, like you snapped out of it, and you just kind of like huffed and puffed and tucked your shirt back in, and then the next day you were like in
Sore as
pain.
fuck.
Like,
Yeah, man, I was very sore. No,
and you've explained that it was basically a flashback to being picked on by your brothers.
Yeah, my brother. Yeah.
Your brother, yeah, it was.
Yeah, that's embarrassing. You know the weird thing about that is, Abbott was in the studio.
Well, he was with us.
He was in the studio.
He was in the big studio.
Yeah,
right?
No, he was in the studio with us.
What?
Yeah, ask
I
him
forgot
about
that.
it. I didn't realize because I blacked out.
One of the wow.
And then
One
you
of
guys,
the-
your reaction from the other studio, you
like,
told this story
it
where you're
was-
like, oh,
yeah.
what's going on in there? Like,
I thought, yeah, I didn't know. I thought maybe somebody had I heard something fall. You must have knocked over the garbage can, right? But like, I thought maybe somebody tripped or you guys had dropped something. I didn't know what was going on. I just saw this, cartoon pile of smoke. Hey, I can end on this, I guess, last. Another sign that we all like each other, and this is a recent one, and everybody that's probably listening knows this bit, but I will never forget the look on Carly's face when, quote, Brett Michaels invited her on stage, and she was on the brink of tears of joy. She was so happy. Her brain was exploding.
it was like
That
there were
she-
tears starting to well up. Yeah.
that she was going to get to sing on stage with Brett, and it was the pinnacle of her Brett Michaels fandom. And then when Ryan Donaldson pulled the rug out from underneath her and said, I'm Ryan Donaldson, and the look on Carly's face, I will never forget that look. And obviously we have the YouTube video, and then even Greg Bro's cartoon
yeah, right.
does a really good job of encapsulating how mad she is. By the way, have I told you guys that I showed that cartoon to my daughter, the youngest daughter? Harper walks around the house. We actually taped her doing this and sent it to Carly. She does a dead-on impression, and we almost can't get her to stop doing it. She'll walk around the house and she'll go, I am so mad at you guys. I am so
got
mad
to
at you
hear
guys.
that. Why did we not have that in the system?
I'll have Angie text it to me. Like, she does a dead-on Carly impression. But
That's great.
to wrap it up, if we weren't as close and didn't love Carly as much as we would have pissed her off. And we temporarily pissed her off. But at the end of the day, she was... What's that one?
I'm a little,
Oh, yeah. Being defeated by Coke Zero. Yeah. Well, Langdon was there for it. Yeah, I mean,
if she had gone the other direction, we would be the most hated people in the Twin Cities.
right, but she also she knows we did it out of love.
Yeah.
If we didn't have a perfect relationship with her, she would have been like, "You guys are dicks." But
right.
we even joked about it right at the time. We did it because she's one of us. She's a part of the team.
And somebody just reminded me of it. Your massage parlor story, when you took the remote control and your basic phone and you were doing the penis thing with the fucking the one, that was brilliant.
It's been a good
I'm
run.
in a
All right.
data bank.
I gotta roll.
Here's to 20 more years.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Love you guys.
Ow.
Thank you.
Ow. Yow.
Get your ice cold Bud Light, Seltzer hip. Can you get a Bud Light delivered to your seat just like at the game? Yes. And will I still do my touchdown dance just like at the game?